I am but a beta, with the singular aspiration of marrying a reasonably pleasing partner and bearing a child. Yet, fate took a perplexing turn when I found myself imprisoned by an alpha for 3 interminable days and nights. 1. To this day, I remain bewildered as to how circumstances spiraled to this point. I was merely a diligent beta, filling in for a colleague, wholly focused on saving for my future wife. How did it come to pass that I was so thoroughly subdued? As I roused from my slumber, a wave of pain coursed through my body, feeling as though it were not my own. The architect of my predicament now sat upon the bed, casting a look of regret in my direction. It must be said, he is a quintessential alpha, with a countenance marked by cold indifference and chiseled features that would turn heads on the street. His striking visage bore an unmistakable expression of disdain, and his tone was imbued with a lofty arrogance. Last night was my sensitive period. I was unaware. My apologies. What compensation do you require? I shall endeavor to accommodate your needs. With that, he retrieved a pen and swiftly issued me a check. If this sum proves insufficient, feel free to contact my secretary for further arrangements. At long last, I could no longer contain myself. Rising with a smile, I delivered a forceful punch to him, exclaiming, "Damn you." The man appeared momentarily stunned, as though he had never before experienced such an affront. I forcefully withdrew the check from his grasp, limping out of the presidential suite. Seeking solitude, I retreated to a deserted corner, where I gazed at the check for an extended period. Everyone spoke of Zhang Yan as the quintessential pushover, a kind-hearted fool who would still call his assailant bro even after being struck. They were not wrong. Even after being so brazenly wronged, my most outrageous response was merely to throw a punch. My father, prior to his passing, often imparted a singular piece of wisdom. Avoid trouble. When out in the world, mind your own business. If you can endure, then endure. If your teeth are broken, swallow them down. Given our family's circumstances, we cannot afford to harbor grievances. My mind was a tumult of thoughts, yet I struggled to untangle them. Was it not simply a matter of being taken advantage of? As a grown man, should I not refrain from weeping and lamenting? Moreover, that individual had been rather generous. Within just 3 days, he had earned more than I could in 3 years. With this windfall, I could finally marry, thereby fulfilling one of my mother's long-held wishes. Everything seemed right, beneficial for all. Thus, what significance did my personal feelings hold? Subsequently, I requested a year-long leave from the manager and, en route home, purchased some alcohol from a convenience store. Upon my return, I immersed myself in the bathtub until my skin turned pale, desperately attempting to wash away the sensations that man had instilled within me. Quietly dressing myself, I poured a glass of wine. After a few sips, I watched a film before succumbing to sleep. At times, I despised my own calmness. Even my attempts at venting felt feeble and pitiful. I lay at home for an entire day, feeling as though I were running a low-grade fever, drifting in and out of slumber. Yet, for reasons unknown, I did not feel better. Summoning the last vestiges of my strength, I hailed a cab to the hospital. The doctor, with an impassive demeanor, inquired, "What seems to be the problem?" "Fever," I replied. "Go get a blood test to determine the cause," he instructed. I was reluctant to spend money unnecessarily, fully aware of the fever's origin. Yet I clenched my teeth, momentarily at a loss for words. The shame was overwhelming. The doctor, displaying a hint of impatience, pressed, "Why are you just standing there?" Just as I resolved to speak, a nightmarish voice emerged from behind me. "It's likely an infection of a private wound, possibly exacerbated by pheromones." The doctor nodded in understanding, casting a curious glance my way before scribbling on a prescription pad. My face flushed crimson, while the instigator remained unperturbed. He handed me the medication, advising, "Apply the ointment regularly. An infected wound could lead to complications." If only my gaze could turn into daggers, he would have perished 1,000 times over. Yet, I dared not admonish him, for I had researched his background online. Jiang Du, heir to the Jiang group, hailed from a lineage deemed most likely to inherit the conglomerate. In short, he was not someone I could afford to provoke. Accepting the medication, I gritted my teeth and muttered, "Thank you." He regarded me silently, lost in thought. An attractive Omega approached him, calling out, "Brother Jiang." He smiled in response, every gesture exuding aristocratic grace. Not a trace of the wild beast I had encountered that night remained. I instinctively trembled. He smirked slightly, slowly reading my name from the medical record, Zhang Yan. The Omega ensnared his attention, and I nearly fled the scene. Once I recovered, I resolved to visit home. My family resided far away, and a ticket back cost 200 yuan. Typically, I only returned during the new year, yet today I decided to indulge. I even purchased a plethora of items that my mother would usually forgo. It was rather pathetic. Despite graduating from university, I remained mired in the struggle for basic sustenance, sending a mere 1,000 yuan home each month, my utmost limit. Upon my arrival, I spotted my mother waiting at the village entrance. She had acquired a few more strands of gray hair, yet her face lit up with joy upon seeing me. She eagerly took the package from my hands and excitedly shared the latest happenings in the village. The wheat harvest, concerns over insufficient rainfall, fears of drought. She recounted tales of new brides and divorce disputes. Since my father's passing, I recognized my mother's loneliness, yet I felt powerless. I could neither return home to keep her company nor bring her to the city. All I could do was smile patiently and engage with her as she spoke. Once at home, I unveiled the gifts I had brought for her. This is a massager. Your back has been bothering you, so you can use it frequently. And here are some goji berries. Brew them for a daily tonic to replenish your energy and blood. Take a look at these clothes. Do you like them? If not, I can exchange them. My mother regarded me with cautious curiosity, asking, "Ah Yen, where did you find so much money?" The memory of that man proudly handing me the check flooded my mind, and for a fleeting moment, I struggled to meet her gaze. "My boss recently rewarded me for my hard work," I replied. She appeared reassured and went to try on the new clothes, shyly asking, "Do they look good, son?" I fought to suppress the tremor in my voice as I affirmed, "They look splendid." I was but a useless son as I had always been. After my vacation, I returned to the hotel and resumed work. Before leaving, I had promised my mother that I would bring her to the city within a year. I immersed myself in my duties with even greater fervor, often staying overnight at the hotel. However, everything changed when Jiang secured a presidential suite for an extended period and specifically requested my services as his personal steward. Regrettably, I had resigned before his arrival. It was both unfortunate and cowardly, but I truly wished to avoid encountering Jiang again. I accepted a position at a hotel that paled in comparison to the previous one, yet at least I could take solace in the fact that someone like Jiang would likely not deign to visit. My salary was reduced, yet the workload was lighter, allowing me to pursue additional side jobs. My heart brimmed with hope as I calculated when I could finally bring my mother to the city, eagerly tallying my savings. That was until I received a call from the village, informing me that my mother had collapsed. I rushed back home, and the look in her eyes mirrored that of a child who had erred. "I'm sorry, Mom. I feel useless and don't know what happened. I'm fine. Just return to work. Your job is important," she urged. My eyes brimmed with unshed tears as I insisted on taking her to the city hospital for a thorough examination. The diagnosis revealed a brain tumor. The good news was that it was benign, yet the bad news was that it was large enough to compress nerves. She could faint again at any moment, and there was a risk she might never awaken. The only solution was surgery, which came at a steep cost with uncertain outcomes. Alone in the hospital lobby, the midday sun made me feel lightheaded. For the first time in many years, I questioned the heavens, wondering why I had never committed any wrongdoing. All I desired was a life of simplicity, yet I remained deprived of even that. I buried my head in my knees, allowing tears to flow freely, loathing my helplessness. Suddenly, a pair of shoes appeared before me. Looking up, I found a man standing there. His eyes bore a striking resemblance to Jiang, and he smiled with malicious intent. "You must be Zhang Yan, the beta who embarrassed my brother. How about we strike a deal?" The contract stipulated that he would cover all future medical expenses for my mother, while I would remain by Jiang's side for 3 years, gathering intelligence for him. I agreed, for I had no other choice. The man smiled warmly and extended his hand towards me, saying, "My name is Jiang. May our collaboration be fruitful." On that day, Jiang led me into an exclusive private club, where the men and women were impeccably dressed, exuding an air of sophistication. In stark contrast, I, clad in a checkered shirt and sporting glasses, felt an acute sense of incongruity. Jiang gently patted my shoulder and whispered in my ear, "The rest depends on your abilities. Can you entice my dear elder brother?" I found myself awkwardly following a group of elegantly adorned omegas into a private room. They gravitated towards familiar faces, leaving me awkwardly standing alone before the crowd. A few wealthy young gentlemen seated nearby regarded me with amusement, remarking, "Is this the latest trend? It appears rather unremarkable. One wonders how much effort is required to play the part." Their knowing laughter filled the air, and I gritted my teeth, battling the overwhelming wave of humiliation that threatened to engulf me. A blonde alpha approached, gripping my chin tightly. How intriguing. His demeanor exuded discomfort, cold and serpentine. A shiver ran down my spine as he unexpectedly leaned in to kiss me. Before my mind could fully comprehend the situation, my hand instinctively struck him. The sharp sound echoed in the suddenly hushed room, and he regarded me with a chilling stare, akin to observing a lifeless creature. Such defiance. I wonder if you'll still be smiling later. The strength of a beta could not possibly withstand an enraged alpha. He yanked at my wrist, dragging me towards the exit. In desperation, I bit down on his wrist and fled towards Jiang. I knelt at his feet, pleading earnestly, "I beg you, save me." Jiang lounged on the sofa, lazily lifting an eyelid and replying coolly, "And who do you think you are?" He swirled his glass nonchalantly, no longer regarding me. The blonde alpha scoffed, "Do you really believe Jiang would be interested in a lowly beta like you?" With that, he reached for me again, and in a moment of reckless determination, I closed my eyes, steeling myself, and kissed Jiang lips. "I will make you feel good." He scrutinized me with a bemused expression, his gaze appraising my pale face and disheveled hair. Just as I resigned myself to the situation, the man suddenly declared, "I want this one." His elegantly defined fingers found their way to the nape of my neck, compelling me to follow him. We traversed a tranquil corridor and entered a secluded room. The door slammed shut, causing my heart to flutter in trepidation. Jiang sat on the edge of the bed, raising an eyebrow with a playful glint. "How do you plan to make me feel good?" Memories of those 3 days flooded back, and my legs began to tremble. I stared at him, gathering my courage, and fumbled with the buttons of my shirt, only to find my nervousness made it increasingly difficult to unfasten them. Suddenly, Jiang chuckled and rose to approach me. He towered over me, casting me in his shadow, the air thick with an almost woody scent. With my head bowed, I dared not meet his gaze, fixated instead on the stubborn button. His hand seized mine forcefully, pulling it down. "This is where the pleasure lies." My face flushed crimson, and I instinctively attempted to withdraw my hand, but his grip was too strong, rendering me helpless and on the brink of tears.
Jiang grasped my chin.
The mirth fading from his expression. Zhang Yan, at this point, why pretend to be innocent? He watched me with a calm demeanor, as if observing a small creature frantically trying to escape a trap. The careful visage of my mother flashed in my mind. I had never truly been given a choice, had I? Finally, the stubborn button yielded to my efforts, and I stood on tiptoe, desperately kissing his neck and ear. "I won't leave. I will make you feel good." He stood there, hands relaxed at his sides, allowing my uncoordinated kisses to continue without resistance. I was at a loss, anxiety threatening to overwhelm me. Yet, Jiang suddenly laughed, his gaze deep and penetrating as he effortlessly lifted me off the ground. He pressed a series of moist kisses against my skin, whispering breathlessly, "Learn from this. This is how to truly feel good." I lay back on the bed, succumbing to his kisses, piece by piece. Jiang was a master deceiver. In the end, it was anything but pleasurable. I cried out for him to release me, and he chuckled in response, inching closer. The following morning, I awoke to bright daylight, finding Jiang leisurely dressing by the bedside. He tossed me a mobile phone. "This number contains only my contact. Do not silence it. Whenever I call, you must come to me." I protested softly. "How am I supposed to work like this?" The next day, he converted that hotel into a Jiang family asset, and to my astonishment, I became entangled in the web of connections. I had assumed that someone of Jiang stature would have no shortage of companions. A brief interaction every 10 days or so would have been bearable, yet I was unprepared for his frequent visits, revealing the boundless energy of an alpha. Eventually, whenever I encountered Jiang my legs would tremble in trepidation. I attempted to resist. One day, I deliberately discarded the phone, feigning an accidental drop. Yet, 30 minutes later, Jiang appeared in the manager's office. The hotel manager, oscillating between deference and fear, ushered me before him, his expression obscured by shadow. That day, in front of the one-way glass, I watched my colleagues pass by, biting my lips until they bled. From that moment on, I learned my lesson and no longer dared to harbor any illusions. As we spent more time together, I gradually realized that Jiang who initially seemed cold and unfeeling, was, in fact, more susceptible to gentleness than harshness. At times, he could be downright childish, Fortuitously, my university studies revolved around early childhood education. I decided to treat him like a child. When he asked if he was formidable, I would praise him. Adu is truly remarkable, the best in the world. When he inquired about my comfort, I would affirm, very comfortable. My father often said that children from poor families grow up quickly. A sweet tongue never leads to loss. After so many years in the world, I had honed my ability to speak appropriately to anyone, whether human or ghost. Gradually, Jiang began to consider my feelings, though I still had to curse him. Damn it, he's nothing short of a beast. 3 months later, I saw Jiang in the newspaper, photographed with an omega at a gala. A wave of relief washed over me. At last, he was no longer solely fixated on tormenting me. That evening, I joyfully strolled through a supermarket, purchasing an array of hot pot ingredients and wine, eager to enjoy some long-awaited solitude. However, just as the hot pot was simmering, that dreaded phone rang. In a flurry, I reached for it only to accidentally hang up. When I called back, the screen displayed that it was powered off, and my heart sank. 5 minutes later, the doorbell rang, and there stood Jiang, his gaze heavy with intensity. Brother, you've been naughty. I was 5 years his senior, and one day, after hearing my younger colleagues call me brother, he inexplicably decided to adopt the same term. That night, he alternated between calling me brother and questioning my satisfaction, keeping me awake until the early hours. Typically, when he called me brother, it signified his extreme displeasure. Before I had the chance to feel fear, the hot pot in the kitchen overflowed, prompting me to rush into the kitchen. Upon my return, I found Jiang meticulously examining my room while tending to the plants on the windowsill. I currently reside in an old neighborhood. The apartment is modest, yet it is filled with various trinkets I have collected over time. Wherever I go, I take delight in creating a comfortable atmosphere for myself. Although this place is not my own, witnessing my belongings gradually fill the space still evokes a sense of belonging. I recall when I first arrived in this city, having not yet secured employment and without a single penny to my name. I made a little nest for myself beneath a bridge, which I managed to keep quite tidy. Subsequently, I lived in a company dormitory and moved several times before finally settling into this apartment, which has brought me a semblance of stability. Balancing the hot pot, I glanced at Jiang with a touch of embarrassment. I've cooked something. Would you care to join me? My invitation was merely a formality, yet to my surprise, Jiang removed his suit jacket and took a seat across from me. For reasons unknown, the somber aura that had enveloped him at the door seemed to vanish miraculously. That evening, we finished an entire pot of hot pot together and drank all the beer from my refrigerator. Later, as Jiang grew a bit intoxicated, he embraced me and slept beside me for the night. It was a rare instance of tranquility between us. He appeared to take great pleasure in my little abode, persistently requesting a key from me. I furrowed my brow, reluctant to acquiesce. I regarded Jiang as my superior. Thus, I believed that one's personal life and professional life should remain distinct. Yet he fell silent, his head bowed in contemplation. He sat in the spacious black leather sofa, with the vast emptiness of his villa looming behind him. For some reason, I suddenly felt a pang of pity for him. Jiang had never spoken of his parents. All I knew was that the current matriarch of the Jiang family was his stepmother. His wallet contained a photograph of a woman, gentle and beautiful, resembling Jiang closely. Sometimes, he would awaken in the middle of the night, calling out for Mom. Damn it, I felt my heart soften. With a stern expression, I tossed the key to him. Don't lose it. He gazed at the key for a long time before burying his head in the crook of my neck. I knew it, you're the best. I felt irritation towards Jiang as well as frustration towards myself. Yet, he smiled, nuzzling closer like a puppy, planting a flurry of delicate kisses along my neck. Brother, I like you, I really like you. This marked the first time he had uttered such romantic words to me. I was momentarily taken aback, only to be engulfed in his kisses thereafter. After that day, Jiang seldom invited me to his villa. More often than not, he would appear at my home as if he had claimed it as his own. Occasionally, when I went to the market to buy groceries, he would follow me. Dressed in a simple sweatshirt, Jiang looked like a recent university graduate. When the elderly vendor asked for my payment, she inquired, Xiao Zhang, do you have guests at home? Unsure of how to respond, I simply replied, yes, my cousin is visiting. Jiang hand slipped beneath my shirt, yet he wore a deceptively innocent smile. Hello, auntie. I gritted my teeth, pressing down on his mischievous hand while expressionlessly placing the groceries into his grip. Jiang looked at me, a sly smile dancing on his lips. In no time, he had ingratiated himself with the vendors at the market, who all adored this charming young man with a generous spirit and pleasant demeanor. Jiang forcefully invaded my life. On the day my mother underwent surgery, he accompanied me outside the hospital room, providing support. On the very first day together, I confided in him about Jiang, and Jiang was no fool. Instead of balancing between two individuals, he chose to firmly grasp one person's thigh. In truth, Jiang had been prepared long ago, yet he did not anticipate Jiang swift actions, which left him at a significant disadvantage. When the surgical lights finally turned green, I approached, my legs trembling. A warm sensation enveloped my palm as Jiang clasped my hand, the heat gradually soothing my racing heart. The surgery was a success, and my mother only needed to stay in the hospital for a little while longer. During my hospitalization, Jiang would affectionately call my mother Auntie, charming her with his presence and declaring what a wonderful colleague I had. The night before my mother was discharged, Jiang insisted on taking me for a walk. The moonlight cascaded like water, and the cicadas serenaded the summer night. Jiang held my hand firmly as we strolled down the street, appearing like an utterly normal couple. For a fleeting moment, I felt a sense of disorientation. When I looked up, I was met with a familiar face. Something flashed through my mind, and I quickly processed that this individual was connected to Jiang and someone I had seen in his company before. I couldn't help but ponder the consequences if Jiang were to perish. As the betrayer of Jiang, my fate would undoubtedly be dire. Acting on instinct, I stepped in front of Jiang, the knife pierced slowly, blood seeping out. The bodyguards concealed in the shadows swiftly subdued the assailant, while Jiang held me, trembling all over. I was uncertain whether I was on the brink of death, so I mustered the strength to utter, "Please take good care of my mom." It was the first time I witnessed such a bewildered expression on Jiang's face. His voice trembled yet carried a menacing tone. "Brother, if you dare die, your mother will become a lonely elderly woman. At that point, I will toss her into a nursing home and let the caretakers bully her." I couldn't discern whether I fainted from pain or fury, but I lost consciousness. When I awoke, Jiang was seated beside my bed, dark circles under his eyes betraying his fatigue. I struggled to rise, only to be met with sharp pain from my wound, causing me to cry out. As I lifted my gaze, I found Jiang's intense eyes fixated on me. How could I describe those eyes? They contained an overwhelming complexity of emotions, and to my astonishment, I discerned affection within them. His voice was hoarse as he gently called out, "Brother, please don't leave me again, all right?" I looked at him, momentarily overwhelmed, yet I reassured him, "All right, I promise I will never leave you." Jiang seized this opportunity to decisively eliminate Jiang and his associates, forcing the elder Jiang to step down and officially assuming control of the Jiang family. His mother had been driven to her demise by his father, and now he had avenged her. No matter how busy he became, Jiang visited me daily during my hospital stay. He knew of my sweet tooth and brought me different desserts each day, watching with a smile as I savored them. Sometimes, I pondered the nature of my relationship with Jiang initially. Our agreement was that he would help save my mother, and I would stay by his side until he grew weary of my presence. Thus, our relationship was a blend of mutual benefit, desire, and perhaps even friendship. I found it difficult to comprehend, and I could not articulate it clearly. Consequently, when Xinxi approached me, I agreed to her request without a second thought. Xinxi was the Omega I had seen in the newspaper, Jiang's fiancé. "Mr. Jiang, we are to be married soon. What sort of identity do you intend to maintain beside Jiang? As a lover, perhaps? How do you think Auntie would feel if she were to learn of this?" As she stood there, even her tone of arrogance mirrored that of the former Jiang. Truth be told, she needn't have said much. I had already prepared to leave. The inception of my relationship with Jiang was nothing short of a humiliation. Even though it was veiled in a facade of tender affection, the shame he had inflicted upon me could not be concealed. I found it impossible to harbor hatred for him, for he had saved my mother. Yet, love remained elusive, as our beginnings were steeped in filth. Before my departure, I left all the money I had earned over the years with Jiang. It seemed rather sentimental, as if this gesture might allow me to reclaim a fragment of my trampled dignity, transforming our relationship from a mere patronage into something more intricate. My father often remarked, "To live is to have substance. Without substance, one possesses nothing." On the eve of my departure, Jiang perhaps sensing something amiss, held me close and repeatedly asked, "Brother, you won't leave me, will you?" A wave of panic surged within me, yet I responded with unwavering conviction, "I will not leave you." The following day, I vanished from Jiang City alongside my mother, courtesy of a tragic car accident. Shenxi presented me with numerous choices, yet I opted for a quaint village with modest economic prospects. The village was predominantly inhabited by elderly individuals and children left behind, featuring a Hope Elementary School staffed by a solitary teacher. I had pursued a public-funded teaching degree in university, yet due to various circumstances, I never became a teacher. However, my education was not in vain. The villagers were warm-hearted, and life was uncomplicated. Despite the low wages, the land was fertile and resources were plentiful. I cultivated a patch of land, planting an array of fruits and vegetables, with my mother tending to them. The connection with the earth alongside my mother rejuvenated her spirit day by day. I found joy in the company of the village children, who were like unrefined gems, constantly surprising me. Another female teacher at the Hope School, Qin Fong, had only completed high school but was incredibly eager to learn, often seeking my guidance on various matters. At times, my mother would tease us, saying, "I think Teacher Qin is quite lovely. Why don't you give it a try?" For some reason, these moments would always evoke thoughts of Jiang Du. One day, Qin Fong confessed her feelings for me, and I hesitated to respond immediately. I didn't harbor any disdain for her. I pondered if being with her might restore my life to a semblance of normalcy. The newspapers reported that Jiang Du had become engaged to Shenxi, and I had not thought of him in quite some time. Perhaps it was time to afford myself an opportunity for the future. That day, we ventured into town to procure stationery for the children. At a local tea house, I prepared to unveil my past to her. As Qin Fong sat across from me, she gazed at me with a hint of anxiety. Taking a deep breath, I said, "I once had a relationship with an alpha. If you don't mind, we could explore something together." Qin Fong paused momentarily, and I offered a smile. "It's all right if you do mind. I simply don't wish to deceive you." She nervously ran her fingers through her hair, blushing as she replied, "Everyone has a past, Yen Gu. I only desire your future." She placed her hand upon mine, and just as I was about to reciprocate, I glanced up to find Jiang Du watching us, a subtle smile gracing his lips. Panic washed over me as Jiang Du approached, adopting an assertive demeanor as he seated himself beside me, playfully toying with my hair. "Brother, would you care to introduce me to this lovely lady?" Qin Fong looked at me, bewildered. Jiang Du leaned in, his voice a hushed whisper meant solely for my ears. "Brother, does she know how captivating you are in bed?" I could feel my complexion drain of color, and I grasped his hand beneath the table, silently pleading for him to cease. He regarded me quietly, a slow smile spreading across his face. "Brother, so you do no fear?" Qin Fong, concerned, looked at me and asked, "Yengu, what's wrong?" I forced a smile, attempting to reassure her he is a distant cousin. "You should head back now, I'll take him for a stroll around town." Once Qin Fong departed, Jiang Du shed his pretense, his expression darkening as he gripped my wrist, wordlessly leading me outside. We walked until we reached a secluded spot, where he pressed me against the wall, his body radiating heat, whispering in my ear, "You've been disobedient. You promised you'd never leave me. Those who misbehave deserve to be locked away." I endeavored to calm him, reasoning, "Jiang Du, you said you'd let me go once you grew tired of me. You're engaged now. There's no future for us." His eyes reflected an unsettling blend of obsession and madness, as his icy fingertips brushed against my parched lips. "I will no longer trust you." His hand slowly descended, mocking, "Can you still perform in that regard, brother?" Then, a flurry of kisses engulfed me, and I summoned the last vestiges of my rationality to restrain his fervent lips, whispering, "Please, not here." Jiang Du lowered his gaze, peering deeply into my eyes, and without uttering a word, he seized my hand and led me to a car. Before long, we were aboard a private jet, the entire experience feeling surreal as I found myself back in the apartment in Jiang City. With reddened eyes, he implored, "Did you ever truly care for me?" I maintained a stoic expression, articulating each word with precision. "Our beginning was rooted in your coercion. You will fall for one who is strong." Before I could finish, Jiang Du silenced me with a kiss, as if denying my words would erase the reality of our situation. That night, he repeatedly called me brother, compelling me to respond affirmatively, from dusk until dawn. In the aftermath of that day, I officially became Jiang Du's lover, or perhaps mistress would be a more fitting term. He forbade me from working, providing for me in a villa on the outskirts. He even hired a caretaker for me, a gesture I initially resisted, but he insisted. It soon dawned on me that he merely sought someone to monitor my every move, and I acquiesced. Thus, a diligent worker for nearly a decade found themselves living a life of leisure, dependent on another. He wielded my mother as leverage against me, permitting me occasional visits. Jiang was inherently this way. His perceived kindness led me to mistakenly believe he was harmless. My mother seemed to sense something amiss, her worry evident as she asked, "Ian, what is wrong?" I held back tears, forcing a smile as I reassured her. "My boss misses me and specially asked me to return to assist him." I could not discern whether my mother believed me, but I had no other recourse. I was merely a fish on the chopping block. Jiang had even cultivated a vegetable garden for me at the villa, yet I lacked the energy to tend to it. In the past, even a modest home of a few dozen square meters sufficed for a fulfilling life, yet now, in this sprawling villa, I felt no spark of enthusiasm. My father used to say that one must have hope in life. Once, my hope was to have a home, children, and a simple existence. Now, I found myself trapped in this vast villa, akin to a bird with broken wings. Everything in the world held little interest for me, as I spent my days languishing in the courtyard, lost in thought. Jiang would bring me curious trinkets daily, and I would express my gratitude, yet I never picked them up again. Often we would sit in silence, exchanging no words. Eventually, Jiang began introducing me to his circle of friends. They greeted me with smiles, yet disdain lurked in their eyes. I felt out of place among the privileged, as well as among the delicate omegas. Frequently, I feigned joy as I engaged in their games. Only when I am alone do I remove the facade of a smile that I wear for the world, gazing expressionlessly at the reflection of myself in the mirror. "You seem rather unhappy?" A young man appears in the mirror, and I recognize him. His name is Zixing, an artist. His sudden arrival catches me off guard, leaving me unprepared to present a perfect smile. "I hope this isn't too abrupt. I found you captivating and decided to sketch you." On the rough sketch paper lies an image capturing the scene I had just observed in the mirror, subtle fatigue and a faint glimmer of despair. His artwork possesses a certain vitality. I once aspired to study fine arts myself. However, I ultimately chose a government-funded teaching program, never having made a choice in my life. "You draw beautifully. If you are interested, you might give it a try." He places the brush into my hand, and the familiar sensation of bristles against paper stirs something within me. I gently dab and outline the distant silhouette of a building. Zixing praises my innate talent. His demeanor is distinct from that of everyone else around here, preventing me from maintaining a completely indifferent facade. Just then, Jiang strides silently towards me, his face beaming as he calls out, "Brother, let's go home." Zixing smiles at Jiang and hands me a business card. "If you're interested, you can work at my gallery." Jiang takes the card on my behalf. "We will consider it." He then takes my hand, leading me outside without another word. In the car, he unexpectedly kisses my lips, his voice tinged with grievance. "Brother, it's been ages since you've smiled at me." I manage a smile, yet he seems even more upset, biting my lip playfully. "Not that kind of smile. I mean a genuine smile from the heart. How does one smile sincerely?" The memory eludes me. Jiang, exasperated, resembles a cornered beast. "You seem like a mere puppet now." I gaze at him quietly. "Am I not this way because of you?" A year under Jiang's confinement passed, and my mother's health suddenly deteriorated. Before she departed, she seemed to sense something, clutching my hand as tears streamed down her face. "My dear Ian, it's all my fault. I've burdened you." In the end, I could no longer utter comforting lies. I simply held her hand, silently witnessing her departure. After that day, the last pillar of my existence crumbled, and I began suffering from relentless insomnia. One day, I sat by the window, lost in thought. When Jiang returned and saw me, he trembled as he lifted me from the windowsill. "Brother, please don't scare me like that. I didn't truly wish to die. I merely struggled to distinguish reality from fantasy." After that day, Jiang consented to my working at Zixing's gallery. Bit by bit, I began to reclaim my former self through painting. I became enamored with the sensation of creating art. Zixing imparted numerous techniques to me, asserting that I was his best student, although my works were steeped in sorrow. I was unaware of what he discussed with Jiang. I only knew that one day he asked if I wanted to leave, and I agreed. On the day of my departure, a gaze fell upon me from the balcony. I understood that Jiang was there, merely deciding to let me go. This time, we arrived at a seaside village. I relished sitting by the shore as the sun descended, watching it sink gradually. The primal emotion that nature evokes instilled in me a sense of hope for life, until I discovered a persistent nausea within me. Initially, I did not entertain the thought of pregnancy. After all, it seemed absurd for a beta to conceive. Yet, as my abdomen swelled day by day, when Zixing took me to the hospital for a checkup, confirming my pregnancy, inside me resided a life entirely my own, something in this world that was solely mine. Upon returning home, when Zixing suddenly grasped my hand, gazing at me with utmost gentleness, "Ian, let us terminate the pregnancy. Just you and me. Let us live well, shall we?" I firmly rejected him. He merely responded with kindness, assuring me that he would respect my choice and expressing his desire to continue working together, valuing my talent. Yet, in truth, he and Jiang belonged to the same ilk, equally positioned individuals who could easily dictate the course of another's life. A surge of intense anger welled up within me, and I struck him hard. Jiang claims to love me, and so do you. Yet, no one ever cares about what I truly desire. What difference is there between you and Jiang? He appeared flustered, attempting to explain. "No, that's not it. Exhaustion overwhelmed me. Please leave. I no longer wish to see you." A year later, I gave birth to a child whom I named Jiang. My only hope for him was that he could live with integrity. Fortunately, my art exhibition achieved significant success, allowing me to provide him with a better material life. Jiang was aware of the child's existence, and I did not deliberately prevent their meetings. The grievances between Jiang and me should not extend to the child. During childbirth, due to hormone injections, I required the soothing presence of an alpha's pheromones. Hence, Jiang would visit my small cottage every few weeks. Just as he had said when we first met, he knew how to bring comfort. After each encounter, he would ask if I loved him. I would nod with a smile, and he would depart, forlorn. Once again, Jiang inquired, "Do you love me?" He looked at the man before him, smiling in response. Yet his eyes revealed only indifference. In truth, Jiang understood that he could never possess my love, yet he persistently asked, seeking a response that was forever unattainable. The end of the story. Thank you for listening. We shall meet again in the next tale.